Joe Costello.
Thank you very much, Laskin Corla. And I welcome the opportunity of discussing this important private member's motion and congratulate Deputy Penrose for tabling it on behalf of the Labour Party. And at the outset, I utterly reject the government's amendment, which begins with the now meaningless government mantra, which it uses for all its woes, and I quote, that the global banking crisis is impacting on economic activity across the global and Irish economies. So global is thrown in twice for good measure, just in case we missed it the first time. Of course, the global economy impacts on Ireland's very open economy, but Ireland's banking crisis is essentially a homegrown phenomenon. Ireland's banks broke all the basic regulatory rules and handed out money with the reckless abandon of a drunken punter in Paddy Powers who thinks he is winning when in fact he is losing his shirt. The financial regulator also went to sleep on the job. The collateral damage caused by the bank's negligence is now causing serious damage to the economy. Already the government has had to bail out all the main banks with approximately 500 billion national guarantee and put the country's financial integrity on the line. This action was supposed to stabilise the banking system and to attract the necessary liquidity into the bank's vaults. Yet 6 weeks on, the banking crisis is still upon us and the credit crunch is worsening daily. The banks are not lending to the small and medium-sized businesses, as ISME spokespersons are telling us daily, and as we know from the recent ISME survey that was done, that 54% of small and medium businesses had sought funding from credit from their banking institutions or an extension of that credit, and they have been refused, and that is a colossal figure. The banks do not appear to have the funds to make the money available, or they are deliberately hoarding any money that they can collect to ward off against the rainy day of their indebtedness, which has been created by their overexposure to the construction industry in particular. Small and medium enterprises are the backbone of the economy. They have created hundreds of thousands of jobs throughout the country. And the Minister gave the figures the other day, 250 small and medium businesses and 800,000 jobs minimum. But to continue to operate, they need to borrow, they need overdrafts, and they need a cash flow. The Irish banking system is failing them, and in failing them, the banks are failing the economy. Much worse, they are contributing to redundancies and the dole queues. 95,000 job losses in the last 12 months, and over 100,000 job losses projected by the ESRI for next year. That's the abyss that's facing so many Irish families for the first time this Christmas. What compounds this awful waste of human resources is the failure of the banks to access a ready source of funding that was specifically set up by the European Union to bolster the small and medium-sized enterprises throughout the 27 member states. When the autumn summit of European Union heads of state was held 6 weeks ago in Brussels, the European Investment Bank placed the sizable sum of 30 billion on the table for the banks of the 27 member states to access and to loan it to their small and medium enterprises to ensure that they were well resourced and that they did not face a credit crunch in the present financial turmoil, specifically for that purpose. To date, not one of the Irish banks has even bothered to draw from that invaluable pot of money, while 22 of the 27 member states have grasped the windfall with open arms and are busily using it to oil the wheels of business in their countries and to protect the jobs of their citizens. The Irish banks are reported to have rejected this money because it is subject to EU regulation and will not give them the profitable return that they have been accustomed to during the halcyon days of the Celtic Tiger. Their arrogance and unwillingness to change bad habits is certainly costing this country dearly. The Minister for Finance told us yesterday in this House that the European Investment Bank has been in contact with some of the Irish banks. They've been in contact with some of the Irish banks. Why is it not the other way around? The Minister has admitted that he has, quote, urged the banks to utilise this facility, unquote. Wonderful. What is the purpose of bailing out the banks with 500 billion of taxpayers' money if the Minister cannot tell the banks that the viability of small and medium enterprises is as important as the viability of the banking system? There must be a quid pro quo. If the banks will not draw down and lend the money that has been offered to them on a plate, then what is the purpose in the taxpayer saving the banks from collapse if they're not carrying out the job that they're supposed to do? Ultimately, Laskin Corla, the buck stops with the Minister for Finance, and it's not good enough for him to save the banks and say he is doing that and then stand idly by as they revert to their old discredited and irresponsible practices. 6 weeks has now gone by since the 30 billion was placed on the table by the EIB, and none of that money is circulating in Ireland. Money which could be now protecting Irish jobs in Irish enterprises and which was intended for that purpose. In conclusion, Laskin Corla, can I say that I'm afraid this is another example of the European Union at its best and another example of the Irish government at its worst.